I'm excited.
Why's that?
We have an apparel sponsor, Parry Athletic. Such good gear, and it's incredible. I've been enjoying it.
Bro, George came through, messaged us on the Instagram, said he's been following our program for ages. He's getting stronger and more mobile. And he's got this cool gear company called Parry, and he wants to send us some stuff.
And he told me that his mission was to create the best pair of training shorts ever.
Yeah, he wanted something that he could lift and roll in, and that could accommodate thick, muscular thighs and hips.
And that suits us.
Speaks to us.
Also, what I like is I love the colorful design. It actually looks really cool.
I am the most colorful dude on the mats these days, hands down.
Yeah, you get that kind of expression feel. A lot of other jiu-jitsu gear is kind of a bit boring.
Yeah, it's all like
comparison.
grays and blacks and shit. This stuff is the color and the vibrancy.
It makes you stand out. And I think the thing that I've loved about it is just it feels good. It feels good. It looks good. And you, ladies and gentlemen, can get a discount when you go to checkout. If you go to parryathletics.com, when you go to checkout, put in the code Bulletproof20 and you get 20% off. Oh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, do you suffer from jiu-jitsu problems? A lot of us do. And as a result, we need to solve them. And both Joey and I, we've had our problems. And we thought we'd unpack these problems here.
You've had your fucking problems. Tell you that much.
Name
right now.
The guy sitting across from me. Oh, you got a problem, mate? So one of the biggest problems I have found recently, these are people coming to me saying, yo, I got these problems, and solves them for me, is choosing what to learn. There's a lot of information out there, and it's hard to know what's the right thing to do. My instructor's saying this, Gordon Ryan says that, Reddit says this, you guys say this. What do I do? So I want to start at the start, which was my problem when I was a white belt, was scarcity of information. Like we had like Gracie magazine, you know,
Yeah.
it was some bullshit. Like I would ask an older belt, like, yo, how do you do this thing? And they're like, oh, we don't do that.
Times were simple back then.
They were. It was a different time, man. In my hometown, we had this kid named Johnny. And he used to be in bowler. We didn't call it that. We called it the pig roll. I think for me, I didn't know what to do. And I wanted to know how to get better at jiu-jitsu. And I thought, oh, man, I need to learn more stuff because I got people kicking my ass. And I think that's inverted now. It's not a question of there's no information. There's too much information. There's BJJ Fanatics. There is Jiu-Jitsu X. Like YouTube. Everyone's got a streaming service. I think one of the hardest things for anybody is when you first start jiu-jitsu, how do you choose? What do you do? So for you, Joe, when you first started jiu-jitsu, would you say what was your number one source of info?
Coach.
100.
Yeah. Whatever he's telling me to do, that's what I'm doing.
You're in there. And I think this has probably suited you in a lot of ways to just rock up and do the thing, right?
Yeah, my style was just show up and do whatever everyone's doing. And it worked for me.
Yes.
Obviously.
Clearly. But I would say that the thing I keep coming back to
wasn't a fast track.
But your level of success early, or just in general, from minimal instruction and like just you being like, I'm just going to strangle my...
Well, I got a couple of cheeky taps on day one.
I know,
nice.
but I'm saying that like your general inclination to want to stand and bang, as we say, it was there.
Yeah,
A lot of people are on the other side of that.
Of course.
Not being Joe Worthington.
They don't have that dog in them like Joey Worthington got.
But they're being victims to
2-1-1 till I die, bro. I grew up on these streets.
Rat Pack for life. Pack.
So for whatever, right, it worked out okay for me. But I was a very low information guy.
Sure.
I didn't get together with friends and drill. I didn't break down my game. I didn't look at holes.
Sure.
And, I've spoken about in other eps how this bit me on the ass heaps of times throughout my jiu-jitsu career.
Sure.
But this simplified approach whereby I just show up and do whatever we're doing, that worked for me.
Yes.
Now, I remember, the game was a lot simpler back then, wasn't it?
It was.
It was pretty much close guard and half guard.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And so in that way, even if it was like, hey, today we're looking at this is how it used to be. Today we're looking at 3 different Kimura variations from close guard.
Yeah.
Today we're looking at 3 different sweeps from closed guard.
Yeah.
Now, the idea of teaching 3 kind of variations of the same technique now is a little bit silly.
Sure.
Because it's like, well, you only need one. Let's just do one and let's look at maybe how to get there or
Sure.
what that pairs with, perhaps.
Yeah.
But what was something that the simplified nature of it was all from closed guard?
Yeah.
That kind of worked in a way.
It was more accessible.
Yeah, cool, because it was just one guard I was working all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas these days, you can be like, hey guys, today we're working at this K guard entry. Hey guys, today I want to do a thing from the saddle.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we're looking at how to get to inversions to back control.
Yeah.
You know, like there's so much going on now.
It's huge.
And so if the coach takes that kind of idea of, I think of like the hopper, which is the early CrossFit games, they had this, like, you know, when you do a raffle or something.
Or like a bingo.
Yeah, they put all
balls
the tickets into the thing and then they spin it, you pick one out. That's what a lot of coaches do with training. Like, what are we going to do tonight? Oh, I'll teach you this. This looks cool. Oh, I saw this on Instagram. Let's do that. I think that is these days is a really inefficient way for someone to learn, especially given the amount of techniques there are.
Definitely. And I think the other challenge is when you first get started in jiu-jitsu is, if we can compare this or analogize this to the gym. You could go in the gym. There's all these machines. Some people are doing CrossFit shit. Some people are doing sumo deadlifts. Like, what? How the f*** do you just do this thing? Like, how can you find what works for you?
Yeah.
You know, and that's why a lot of people have personal trainers. That's why personal training is such a big industry, because people want guidance.
Yeah.
I think, you know, one of the hardest things is your coach might be very different to you, even though they might be an awesome coach. And so they might be like, just do what I do my game. But their game might not suit you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that, or they might just be pulling shit out of thin air.
Sure. But I think a lot more gyms have syllabuses now. I think...
You would hope so.
I mean, there's plenty of new gyms who are just like very...
I mean, I do it as a coach. I do it as a PT sometimes. If I've got a session with a client, and I'm like, oh, I got to go downstairs and work with Peter in a few minutes, and I haven't at some point prior to this moment sat and considered, what is the plan for him in the next 3 months in the training? What are we doing week to week? What does each session look like? Then I can get down there, and instead of having the confidence to go, hey man, we're working on the same shit we worked on last week.
Yes.
And we're going up by 5% on everything.
Yeah.
You know, and because I'm committed to this process that I've laid out, if I haven't done that, then I'm like, oh, what fun shit can I teach Peter today?
Sure,
hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do that. And that's the lucky dip.
Yeah, and there's value in that. But I think the difference between, say, training to get stronger or fitter or anything like that, he could still get stronger and fitter off that session and would enjoy the variety. You know what I mean?
Even though jiu-jitsu could still get better too, but it's slower on both fronts, no?
No, I actually don't think that's true. I think you could come into the gym lifting and get stronger just doing something different. Like if you're like, oh, we're going to do walking lunges today, and he hasn't done any, you'd be like, oh my God, my glutes, my back. You know, like the new stimulus will do something to the body, whereas a new stimulus in jiu-jitsu can just confuse a mother. It's like, oh, you don't know how to do a sweep? Here's a berimbolo.
Yeah.
Well, what? Oh, I've just herniated this in my neck. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's so many more variables to the jiu-jitsu piece that it can just get confusing, and that can put people off. Because people are just, you know, you don't make progress in something. You're like, F this.
Yeah.
You know, like it gets to a point where
you feel like you're shit at it.
Yeah, and actually that's it. We need to try and pare it back so it's like a little bit more accessible for people, I feel.
Yeah.
And so this is what I'd say, which is I feel it's a slightly different take on your analogy there. Even if it were the case that you had Peter coming in and then you freestyled a session, if we were to put this more to a jiu-jitsu context, what if Peter came in and said, oh man, I f***ed my ankle playing like friendly soccer game in the park. And you're like, we're doing hopping today. Do you know what I mean? I feel that that's where it can be different. Whereas you as a trainer, you're like, oh, your ankle's bad. Okay, we won't work on that. Yeah. Whereas a jiu-jitsu coach is like, nah, everyone's doing this. Oh, you can't do this? Oh, just do some shrimps on the side. Or, you know what I mean? You kind of get left out. The coach isn't necessarily going to tailor the class to you as an individual.
No, not necessarily.
Right.
Yeah. It's a group format. You kind of, the expectation is you fit in with what everyone's doing.
Whatever's going on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my advice that I give to people who are not my students, but they're my friends in jiu-jitsu, and they're like, oh, I train here. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know your coach. They're a nice person, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, but I'm not learning with this. I don't get this thing. I'm like, okay, cool. My personal advice to anyone, whether they're early in the journey or not, if you're working on something or you're trying to think, oh, what the do I work on? Choose one guard or one sweep, like one idea or position, focus on that from the bottom, and then also choose one takedown or one pass. Because you will spend time in either position. You are going to spend some time on your back, and you're going to spend some time on top game, bottom game, etc. So I guess what I like to do is just go, okay, what are you doing at the moment? What guard do you play at the moment? You know, they might be like, oh, I play close guard or I play half guard. Cool. Have you done butterfly guard? No, I haven't. Okay, well, that's not a far stretch from what you do now. Whereas if someone's like, yeah, I already do a bunch of guards, blah, blah, I'll be like, all right, cool, let's just pare it back. It's like, what's your lasso game like? Are you good at that? Are you not good at that? Do you have any idea about that? It's actually a really easy way for you to keep your guard. Practice the shit out of this. Same deal. Like if you got somebody who's got a rugby background, you're like, have you ever been taught how to properly do a double leg? It's like, no. Do you actually know how to set up, snap, blah, blah? No? Okay, well, let's just work on that and just drill the hell out of that. Because, so for example, my friend Walter from East Van BJJ or Alliance Vancouver, his brother taught him 2 takedowns when he was a kid. It was a snap down and an ankle pick because they go together.
Yeah.
And he just drilled, him and his cousin just beat the shit out of each other with these 2 takedowns. And he got into a fight in school. And he snapped the kid down. Kid smashed his face on the ground. Kid got back up, ankle picked him. And then just bulldogged him. And he said the kid was way bigger than him, but kid just didn't know how to wrestle.
Bulldogged him.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means in Canada.
Bulldog the shit out of that kid.
quote unquote. No, it was just interesting. Like, I don't know. Just fucking all over him, just drooling and trying to bite him with ineffective underbite. I don't know. So that really, and then he taught that to me when I trained with him.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I'm going to show you a snap down. I'm going to show you an ankle pick. Yeah. Because I didn't really know how to wrestle. Like I
still use my one takedown that I learned as a white belt.
Right.
Sacrifice throw, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I think, here's the thing. I only knew how to do an armbar as a white belt. I got good at arm bars. Yeah. I could do them from anywhere because it's all I had. I was trying to invent ways to get arm bars. But it's interesting that the imposing that limit, whether you've artificially imposed it or you just don't know any better, you actually get really good at that thing. And to this day, armbar is still my highest percentage finish, even as a black belt.
Yeah, same for me. It's been there forever.
Yeah,
like it was my thing on day one and still is.
Yeah.
What about building a defensive game? On your point here, what about just focusing on defenses? Where does that sit with your recommendation?
Survival is definitely a thing, but I feel that is. I shouldn't say it's inherent, but when you spend time getting beat up, it's people passing your guard and getting on mount and things like this. What I've noticed is a lot of coaches are not going to grade you to blue belt if you can't escape mount or you can't get out of the back or, it kind of works itself out over time that you do have to get better at those skills. And ultimately, if your coach is observing that everyone's getting stuck under mount and not getting out, they will teach you that skill over time, hopefully. And that, look, if you're struggling with a certain escape or whatever like that, you do have to put some time on it. But in terms of focusing on what to learn, you could just focus on escapes as a whole. You could be like, right, I'm just going to put myself in bad position and get out of that.
Yeah.
So for me, for a long time, that was side control.
Right.
I was like, right, I'm just going to start in side control. And then a while back, it was just back escapes. So when we would go to, kind of free training and they're like, start from whatever position you want, I would say to my partner, get on my back. I got to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And just doing that time after time, you feel way calmer there.
Yeah.
And then that just becomes a piece of your armor. Because you said you were working on some back attack stuff for a while, right?
I was working on back attack stuff probably early this year, which was really good. And I'm still it's there in my mind as like, when I get to the position, I go, I'm trying to drill it.
Yeah.
Versus just try and sub them from the back.
Yeah. But bringing that attention to that one thing, you would say it's.
Yeah. More recently I brought my attention to my defenses to guard retention.
Okay.
And this has been quite paradigm shifting for me as I'd say as an old school jiu-jitsu guy, right? Like my jiu-jitsu, like the foundation of my jiu-jitsu is old school. That, we used to have this thing where it's like, if your guard gets passed, you f*** up. Like, it's like, that's it. Like the old school jiu-jitsu is like, they will never pass your guard.
Yeah, Shanji.
Right? Yeah. But then you watch the current no-gi game and it's like, pass my guard. I'm just going to keep, watch Lockie Cade.
Sure.
Right? I'm just going to keep framing on this shit. We'll go back, maybe you're at north-south for a little bit, but you don't have control. Maybe I'll go on my side. You're going, this.
I guess technically at that point, Lockie's not passed.
Well, no, that's what I mean. They've kind of gotten around the legs, but they haven't broken into, right?
Sure, they haven't closed that space.
So as my kind of mentality on it for a long time was like, they've gotten around the legs. Side control.
Give up. Yeah,
and we know that feeling, or you feel it when someone else.
Yeah.
Whereas these days it's like, you got around the legs, but I'm framing on that shit. You can't get inside.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I've actually been working on that with Paul over at Gracie and Balmain, and it's actually really changed my view of things because I'm like,
it ain't over.
Yeah, what I thought was being in a bad position is like, no, just keep defending from there.
Keep working.
And I've realized, wow, I've actually got a lot of gaps in my defensive game.
Sure.
And so the more I defend,
because you're so offensive, John.
Right? The harder they work to try and make something happen, and then they expose themselves.
Yeah, and then you get under them. Or
so, in my kind of thinking, I'm like, man, imagine if I knew this shit back on day one. But I'm also aware that it doesn't necessarily work like that. And I think that one of the challenges with jiu-jitsu is that a lot of the coaches out there, rather, are trying to come up with the system. How do I take a brand new person and the shortest path to greatness?
Sure.
And as we know, there's a lot of different approaches, right? So we haven't arrived at it yet.
No.
And potentially we never get there.
No.
But of course, you have to venture to do so.
Sure. And the game's evolving. I think this is why it is still such an elusive thing. The black belt's elusive, and it's the reason why jiu-jitsu has grown is because the information set has grown. So if you don't want to play that top game takedown smash, or that just doesn't suit you, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to just, if you want to pull guard, you can. If you want to do flying submissions, you can. There's so, I guess what we're really lucky, it's a blessing and a curse in the sense that we can do judo moves in jiu-jitsu. We can do wrestling moves in jiu-jitsu. The same cannot be said for those other arts. You can't do jiu-jitsu in wrestling. They'll DQ you. I don't know if you've seen clips of dudes choking dudes and they're like, no, we don't do that here. Stop. Same thing in judo. You can't double leg.
I was bulldogging him, ref.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's one of those things that because we have the paradigm of choice. We have so much choice, it's hard for us to choose.
Yeah.
So this is what I would say. If you can, and it is hard because we're talking about the discipline piece, right? Especially when you start something new. You're not disciplined. I'm just getting it. I'll do anything,
Yeah.
But to choose, to decide, which means decisive, like to cut.
All right. Latin teacher.
Yeah. Welcome. He just called me Plato.
Veritas.
Plato.
When you see a primary school and they got the name of the school and they got some shit in Latin, JT wrote those.
Yeah. All of them. I invented primary school. I think the interesting thing is it's for many people it's true, and this is why they actually do it in supermarkets to overwhelm you so your decision making is worse. They give you too many choices. You don't know how to choose. Generally, you choose what's on the end cap.
Right.
So they manipulate your buying choice by being like, okay, there's 27 types of toothpaste, but this one's on special. You're like, all right, I'll get that.
Yeah.
They manipulate you in that way. The thing about jiu-jitsu is a lot of people, this is a trend that everybody is buying instructionals, but no one's watching them. You're like, oh, Danaher's the best. And then you realize he's a boring psychopath. And you're like, I can't relate to this shit. I can only listen to Danaher for 10 minutes before I want to shoot myself. So then you've just spent, I don't know, $180 and you're like, this information is not helping me. I think you need to choose, pick one thing, and I'm sure, doesn't matter who your coach is, they'll be able to help you with a simple thing like, I really want to work on this sweep, or I really want to work on this takedown. And any coach who has a student coming to them saying, please help me, I want to get better at this, I'm sure they'll help.
And how long would you suggest someone sort of continues on with that path?
3 months.
3 months.
3 months. Just focus on one thing.
Which isn't really a long time at all in the scheme of things. 12 weeks.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, I think they...
Write that down, guys.
This is some maybe it's some mythology, but they said that at Alliance mythology, that Cobrinha, when he would learn a new technique, he would do it 200 times before he would move on.
Right.
He had to do it 200 times. He felt like within doing the technique 200 times, he was pretty good. I mean, obviously he's
200 reps.
200 reps. And I think what's interesting is even if you practice something for 30 or 50 reps, you start to go, oh, no, I'm getting this. Yeah, it makes more sense. It's good to have feedback, though. It's good to have somebody giving you some help.
Yeah, think about this, like with the reps thing, we all know that it, like, 200 reps kind of sounds like a lot, right? But it's not really, right? We think about it like, you know, whatever. Was it Malcolm Gladwell said that 10,000 reps or 10,000 hours?
10,000 hours.
Is kind of the thing to be exceptional at something or whatever. Sure. But so think about it in a class context. Let's say coach is like, hey guys, today we're doing this Kimura entry.
Yeah.
To go back to that from close guard, creative. And you get 3 minutes to drill it and then your partner gets 3 minutes. And let's say you start drilling it, you do 1 rep, you do your 2nd rep and you made a mistake. Coach is looking at you. Hey, stop. You got to sit up further. You got to get chest to chest on them before you bring that top arm over. See, let me show you. So then the coach goes and shows you. So that's already 60, 90 seconds of the 3 minute round gone. Okay, got it? Cool. Off you go. There's now 75 seconds left.
Hardly.
You get 3 reps.
That's it.
Right? You just got 2 shit reps and then 3 pretty shit reps. Right? But you learn something, right?
Sure.
And then your partner does it and they benefit maybe from the coach's instruction or whatever. And then the coach is like, okay, now let's have a look at an armbar from the close guard instead. Yeah. So now you've moved on to an entirely new technique. Yeah. So in that night, in that class, you've done 3 techniques and you've practiced each of them at minimum 5 times, at best 10, 12, if maybe, that. Right? Man, that's a far shot from like ever actually knowing much about those techniques, isn't it?
Yeah.
You come in the next night and today we're doing back escapes.
Something different.
Completely unrelated. And so it happens, you know, it's a part of the game. You know, I still got no problem personally when I go to a class and we're working on something that's kind of outside of what I actually want to work on. Yeah. Because I'm like, this is great. Like I'm expanding my knowledge a little bit. But when we get into the specific stuff or the roles, that's where I'm going to work what I want to work on.
Yeah.
But I think it's just an important thing to recognize because if you're new and you're like, man, I'm finding this shit so hard to learn, of course, you only did 5 reps. Like, you know, 5 reps this month. That technique might not come around again for 4 months.
Yeah, and it's gone out your brain.
Yeah, so I think like, you know, whatever, coaches, there's an onus on them, but students, like you're the student, you're listening. This is all you can control is your thing. Yeah. You know, how you apply yourself. If there's something you want to learn, you got to actually make the time to practice it more.
That's spot on. It came to me. It's like when you go to a party and you don't know everyone there and they introduce you to people. And you're like, oh, this is so-and-so. You're like, oh, hey, shake hands. Oh, how do you know so-and-so? Yeah, that's cool. All right, yeah. We'll chat later. Never see them again. You're like, what was so-and-so's name?
Yeah.
And then you meet another person. Oh, this person. And you're like, oh. And then like the more people you meet, the more names you forget. Whereas, for example, if you post up with your friend and your friend's like, oh, this is my best mate from this thing. And you get chatting and, oh, what business do you do? And you spend some time with them. And before you know it, you've chatted for 2 hours. You're like, we really get on. We should be friends.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Practice some Kimuras with me?
Yeah, man, bro. So then that's cool. Oh, you train? Oh, you train? Yeah. Before you know it, you're on the floor, you're rolling. People are like, fight. You know, it's just drilling, guys. Relax. So I think it's spending some time with a technique makes a huge difference. But the hardest thing is choosing.
Yeah.
I generally would say go to your natural tendency. You know, if you already have half an idea around a technique or a sweep, go to that. Like, I think it's very worthwhile to go to your strengths. Of course, within jiu-jitsu, you need to practice the deficiencies, the escapes, all of that. But to go so far outside your existing skill set or your kind of natural physicality base is very challenging. Like, I'm not going to say to a very huge, inflexible human, male or female, all right, we're just going to play guard and we're just going to invert. Like, let's go
K-guard entries, baby.
It's going to be
boom.
Real.
You know, Lucky Giles, that's what's up. Let's go.
He's exactly your body type. You know, and so, yeah, I think choosing is hard and then going towards something which suits you is the way to go.
Yeah, I like that. I think really good coaches will naturally find a way to weave together the stuff they're teaching you. And I think that it depends on how many students are there and how the gyms run, all that stuff. But I think a good coach can weave it together and can customize what we're working on in this class for, hey, new guy, just drill more this part of it. Hey, you guys, okay, I want you to add the next layer. Like, I think a good coach can do that. But also, I guess I'm trying to maybe create a bit of slack for, like, if you're at a gym, it's super busy and your coach isn't able to do that just yet, don't feel bad about it.
No, I'm not.
It's a tall ask, right?
I'm not coach blaming here because I know what it's like to be the coach, have 20 students and not be able to accommodate everyone.
Yeah.
And generally you gravitate towards the people who are getting it. Because you're like, oh, they get it. The rest of you.
This is easy for me.
Photo, get out. I mean, no, you're not going to have any students. No, because I've been in the position of doing the one-on-one thing and seen people get better there, and also been in a class and seen people get better in a class. But really the onus is on you, the individual. You must take ownership of this, and going to Reddit and getting another BJJ Fanatics instructional is not going to fix the problem. Honestly, choose one thing, whether it's a submission, a sweep, a takedown, and just find ways to engender that into the class. Now, this is an interesting thing.
Can't say gender anymore.
Sorry. Find ways to implement into the class.
Yeah, my guy.
However you identify. Now, here's the thing. For people out there, like people like, I don't like drilling. Here's an interesting thing.
Neither.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm partial. I like a bit of the old drill. Know what I mean? In it, man, them no. I think one of the important things to realize is, like, so a guy like Lucas Lepre never drilled.
Right.
Considered to be one of the goats of the previous generation. He would drill in rolls. He would pick a pass. But the thing is, he's so good, he could do that to anyone.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to hit a knee cut pass on everyone.
Yeah.
And it was brutal to watch because everyone kind of knew what he was working on, because you go, oh, shit, he's doing the knee cut pass relentlessly against this guy, letting them re-guard, knee cut. And then he just basically spent the whole class in the sparring or the rolling section just doing the one technique over and over again.
Right.
Because he had the ability to control the roll, I guess.
Yeah.
Most people, when you're rolling, it's just on for young and old type thing. So for those of you who are like, I don't drill, if you don't drill, that's fine. You've got to find a way to implement it into your rolling. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, it's a good one. That's something that, like the ability to do that comes way down the track, doesn't it? If even.
Yeah.
But I think a real simple thing you can do is, like, 5 minutes at the end of class is finished, distractions are off. Hey, can I just hit 15 reps of this on you?
Is that drilling, Joe? Are you talking about drilling?
It is. And I never did that. Let me be clear. You won't see Joey doing that shit.
But my advice would be,
I'm going to go get an acai. But that's a really good way. It's like, all right, let me just tack this on to the end of class because I'm not going to make the time. And it's nice because you've gone through all the thing. I think it's kind of like a revision at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the primacy and latency, beginning and end.
We got some voicemails that have come through. Want to hit one?
Hit it.
Oh, we got Chris right here coming in.
Hello, guys. This is Christoph from Switzerland speaking. First of all, thank you very much for all the content. Really, really helped me along the journey. Been doing the strength and mobility very regularly. I find it very, very useful. So thanks a lot. I have one question, and so I've been lifting for 15 years now. Been doing jits for 4 years almost. Very, very constantly, very regularly going to training. Also started wrestling now half a year ago. And so my question is, I've never been really injured. I have had some time off due to holiday or I don't know, like some other things happening. But now I have a bruised rib from wrestling, and it's almost 4 weeks now that I've not been able to train. I've done mobility, I've done strength training besides, but I just cannot get back to the training. So I tried to go already 2 times. Needed to finish early during the training session because I still a lot of pain in the rib, and so maybe could you recommend to me some things I could do? I know you're not a fan of solo drills, but maybe just give me that shits feeling back. Thank you very much, and greetings from Switzerland.
Oh, shout out.
Chris, what a legend. Thanks for calling in. By the way, if you want to leave one of those, just go to our webpage and hit the podcast tab. You can leave us a voicemail. Ribs. So we did the whole rib injury episode, didn't we?
So maybe
catch that.
We can put a link to that just to refresh if you haven't listened to that episode. Look, I've bruised ribs and I've also broken ribs. Bruised ribs are actually more painful, but they don't last quite as long as actual break to the ribs. Here's the deal. Doing more is not going to help you. You can talk solo drills, you get that jits feeling back. You have the jits feeling right now, which is bruised ribs, bro. That's jits. You're feeling it all day every time you breathe, cough, or go to the bathroom, whatever it might be. The hardest thing about ribs is the time. It always takes so much longer, and physicians won't help you. You know, there's no good answer because because you breathe and your ribs are constantly expanding and contracting. At no point do they ever just chill.
Yeah.
So the amount of irritation to the connective tissue, the bone, whatever it might be, it's like a 2-3 month saga. Like you can't be like, I've never taken time off and now I've had a month off and I'm going crazy. Get on board with that because it's going to be like, I'll put it out there and say you still have another 4 to 6 weeks to go. And every time
if you don't go back to training early and just re-aggravate it.
Make it worse.
Yeah, because every time you do that, you just start back at square one.
It's very tough. Yeah.
Essentially, though, this is what we put in that episode all about ribs, but you got to use the gym as a way to progressively simulate what's going to happen in jiu-jitsu.
Certain stress.
So you're starting off with basic stuff, and then you're working on some more dynamic stuff, and then you're finishing like over the weeks, and then you're kind of getting towards some like really dynamic rotational flexion extension based stuff. And when you can do that pain-free, you're like, okay, I can go back to jits now.
Yeah, but for sometimes with the bruised ribs, it's a contact thing. Similar to like if you bruise your shins.
Yeah, if you cop a hit there.
Yeah, whether you've done Muay Thai or soccer, shin clash.
Oh, yeah.
Now you can just feel
We got those shin pads, son.
Oh,
no problem.
Feel that for months.
Like an NFL player out there.
Bone bruise.
Yeah, no, those bone bruises are like really painful.
It's pretty brutal. So I definitely what you were saying, Joe, about gradually building up your tolerance to using the muscles around there. But if it's still sensitive to touch, like if you can't even just take that, you're not going to take a side control. No. You're not going to take a random like rib kick from a white belt, because that's what can happen. So the hardest thing about this, man, is the patience. And that's what injury is teaching you. Injuries come in to go, you haven't had time off before? Well, now you have. And look, thankfully it doesn't require surgery, but man, you just got to take that time.
Part of the process. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time.